What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here with Justin Elick, taking a look at some GPP bats for tonight's slate. You and I were talking, and we are kind of looking at the early slate beforehand here. Just talk about complete opposite of pitching.
Yeah, you got all of the crappy guys working. It's like the maybe I shouldn't go there, but it's the day shift at Gentleman's Club this morning, and then you got all the good workers working tonight. But I mean, that's what it is. It's literally what all 5 starters and spot starters this morning. I mean,
Yeah.
who's the best pitcher on this first slate? Because I guess Kyle Hendricks, but he's in Coors, and I think you and I both believe he's not as good as Cubs fans think he is.
No, we're like Andrew Triggs is probably your guy that everyone's going to gravitate towards, and
I think he'll be good, but I don't
mind Triggs. I just feel like Triggs is kind of boring.
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't flashy enough for me. I need a flashy arm on the hill.
Yeah, we need somebody that can get strikeouts, and every single one of these guys is literally just pitching to contact.
Yeah, so, well, have fun with that. But looking at the night slate, looking at catchers here, catcher has not been an exciting position this year. I mean, unless you have Gary Sanchez on the slate, but we've only had him for like 3 games now.
Yeah, and he did homer.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, no Gary Sanchez tonight, so it's pretty much I mean, a couple guys that I think will probably have, a decent amount of ownership. Sandy Leon had those 3 homers, so those 2-game span there. Boston scoring a ton of runs, so I think he'll have, assuming that he's in the lineup, he'll have a decent amount of ownership there. Yadi Molina against Kohler. Kohler's better against righties and lefties, better against righties and lefties by a mile. But Yadi's just a great cash game player. As much as I hate him, I mean, he's just a good cash game play every day.
Yeah, he's going to get on base twice, score a run, that whole deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think Leon's a good play. I think whoever's behind the dish from Milwaukee, whether it's Jet Bandy or Pena there, I don't mind them. I think Grandal's probably going to come in a little bit higher owned. I mean, good night last night. Definitely the stronger hitters, I mean, in terms of upside, I think is Grandal. And against Cool, who's struggled with lefties, I mean, I can see a lot of people using him. So, I mean, he might be a good GPP fade, though, because he really is boom or bust.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, I think, honestly, for cash games, it's probably going to be for me. I'm playing whoever is starting for Milwaukee. I kind of hope it's Jet Bandy because he's got more power. But, yeah, you're going to be crazy not to get yourself some pieces of that game because it's going to be, I mean, Kyle Kendrick. I'm still a believer that he's the worst pitcher that has stayed in the major leagues in my lifetime. He's just horrible.
By far. I cannot remember a time where you stacked against him and it did not work.
Yeah, exactly. So, unless you play guys that aren't in the lineup. But, I mean, literally all that work is done for you now.
Yeah.
This is in the modern era. You don't have to work hard to get the guys in the lineup.
Yeah. As far as anyone else, I mean, like Victor Martinez is probably going to draw some ownership on FanDuel. I just don't like the way he's swinging the bat right now. I mean, with me saying that, I'll probably hit a homer tonight, but I just don't think the upside's really there with him anymore.
No. And I mean, Sal Perez is a guy I like to play in tournaments usually, but facing Archer, Archer doesn't give up a lot of home runs, and you're really playing Sal Perez hoping he gets a hold of one. So, yeah, that's about it for me at catcher.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might take a shot on Luke Roy just because the price has dropped down so much. I mean, sample size wise, I mean, dude is a talented hitter, but obviously struggling this year. And Perdomo's a guy who you and I were talking before the show. Definitely not an arm we're just jumping all over to attack.
No, not at all. So, I mean, yeah, it's like you said, at catcher, there's really no slam dunk play tonight at all. So, if you're trying to get away from the chalk's probably most certainly going to be whoever's behind the dish in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I would say so too. First base, I mean, there's a ton of different options you can go tonight. I mean,
give me your top 3. Who's your top 3?
Top 3, I would have to say Goldie, Cabrera, and then I want to say Carpenter just because of the way he's swinging the bat. But I love Bellinger too.
Yeah, I mean, price consider, I think Carpenter's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, obviously Goldie against a lefty. Hopefully people look at his numbers this year against lefties, small sample size that haven't been particularly good. But, I mean, Matt Boyd gives up, a 40% hard contact rate to righties. And you got Eric Thames against Kyle Kendrick. Yeah, good luck with that. Now he's homered in 2 straight games, and he found out how to homer against teams that aren't the Reds. So, I mean, if Kyle Kendrick makes it to his second at-bat, I mean, he's got just stupid high upside tonight. And you mentioned both those guys in the Arizona game. I mean, that's got a Coors type of total. It's got what, 10.5 run total. I mean, that's the same total as the Coors game during the day with it, German Herman Marquez on the mound. So, I mean, that's a game you got to get exposure to.
Yeah, I mean, between this one and the Milwaukee game, I think those are my two favorite just because one, the ballparks play well, two bad pitchers. I mean, I don't even think you need to just completely stray away from those guys in GPPs because I think for the most part, I mean, Thames is probably going to be your highest owned. And then I still think Goldie and Cabrera are still not going to have high enough ownership where I just need to fade them.
No, I agree. I think you can get any of those guys. And I mean, Miggy's price is down a little bit too. So I think a nice tournament swerve off those guys there. Jose Abreu against Phil Hughes. We know how bad Phil Hughes is. He's been very fortunate recently. These quality starts are kind of a mirage, but you know how he does that. I mean, he pitches to contact. If the ball stays in the park, then he's capable of that. But I mean, he's definitely liable to blow up at any time. And with everybody looking at all these other sides, Milwaukee, both sides of Arizona, I don't think many people will be on the White Sox.
No, I'm definitely with you. I think he's the real swerve that I could see jumping down a little bit because everyone else, I mean, depends maybe what the Red Sox do if Hanley's in the lineup. I can see a move there. Like Mitch Moreland, I had high expectations for last night, didn't do well. But it's just a matter of what they do because they lose the DH.
Yeah. I mean, one other like super deep option. It looks like Yu Darvish has had some pretty big struggles here with commands, with hard contacts. I mean, a little bit of everything he's pretty much struggled with here. So hasn't really looked like himself. So if you want to take a shot, Will Myers against Darvish. I mean, obviously he has a floor of absolute zero, but it's in Texas. Obviously Darvish has gotten hit around a little bit his last couple starts, even with strikeouts. So I like him as a super deep guy.
Yeah, I'll take a look at Myers. I'm a big fan of his. I think with the price drop as well, going with the matchup, I mean, it makes it a little bit easier to make a pivot.
Yeah.
So, second base, a couple top options up here. I mean, we do have some struggling guys, but I feel like it's a good time to jump on board because, VR hasn't been great to start the year. Odor hasn't been great to start the year, but these are definitely spots where we can see the upside. And I think VR is probably your safest bet, just given the fact that he's still a guy who gets on base and all he needs is just to get on once and he's going to run.
Yeah. I mean, you got to like that about him. He kind of does a little bit of everything. And I mean, you got to imagine that he's going to get on, they're going to score runs. And then, even the bottom of that lineup, we mentioned Pena or Bandy, whoever's hitting late. I mean, he could get some RBI opportunities, which doesn't usually get a lot of at the top of that order.
Yeah. I mean, he should tonight against Kendrick, and that bullpen's not that great either. So, as far as the door goes, I mean, you look at Perdomo, this guy does roll a lot of ground balls. I mean, he has some home runs in his career. He does allow a 39% hard contact rate to lefties, which that's the only real concerning part going up against this Texas lineup. So I think Odor's a guy who I'll take a shot on. I mean, only 2,900. This guy has, home run upside tonight.
Yeah. I agree there. I mean, I think past that, there's really nothing. I was looking for a cheap second baseman, and there's nothing going on at all. I mean, who's the cheapest guy you actually play? Chris Taylor, other than that? His cool's been pretty bad. And Chris Taylor, I'm not a believer that he's actually this good, but he's been hitting, and that lineup's been scoring plenty of runs. Yeah,
like I just looked at it, it just doesn't seem like you need to go anywhere because, like, you look at VR, I mean, 3,100 on FanDuel, that's not expensive. Ador's 29, so it's like, really? I mean, I can't see anyone else really to go with. I mean, I don't know if you want to be contrarian, I guess, like a Brad Miller or something like that, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play a guy like Jed Jerko, who's got some power, but I mean, it's a tough ballpark. Kohler's actually pretty decent against righties, so I'm a little hesitant on that end.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a Brandon Drury, but there's still not enough of a price difference for me.
No, not me either.
So, third base here, and I mean, we get Miguel Sano, who's back from suspension. You came out of the woodworks here as a monster Derek Holland fan. You have a Derek.
Let's slow down, monster.
You have a Derek Holland fathead in the corner there.
that jersey. No, I mean, okay, some of the numbers are pretty concerning, absolutely. But, I mean, he's been not as good as the numbers indicate, of course. What is it? He's allowing like a 220 BABIP, something like that, 40% hard hit rate against righties. But there's a guy who always allowed a lot of hard contact to righties. I mean, Chris Archer and Yu Darvish both have hard hit rates of near 40% too. So it's not like everybody is just immune to hard contact here. And I mean, Holland doesn't strike out a lot of guys, 7.5, 7 per 9. But I mean, he also has the lowest whip of anybody on the slate tonight, not giving up a lot of base runners. I mean, he's not going to give you a monster game by any means, but he could definitely go out and get you a quality start. And you do worry about Sano, of course, as always. But I mean, I would worry about Sano against anybody. I mean, that guy, you keep seeing all these articles written about his hard hit rate, and it's just unbelievable the kind of hard contact that guy's making. So, you know, if Dozier's out again, that certainly helps. I think if Dozier's back, that kind of scares me a little bit more because he's, you know, still not hitting for average, but, you know, he's got that power upside as well. So I think me playing Holland is definitely contingent on Dozier's status here.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if Dozier's in the lineup, I'll take a look at him at second base as well for a pay-up option. But at third base, I mean, the way Sano's dialed in, I still don't even think he's expensive enough. I'll just be continuing to plug him in and play.
Yeah, and on DK, he still has that little red O saying that he's out, even though he's not going to be out for tonight. So that maybe people will be a little scared off him because they see that. But who knows once they get that check mark in there. I feel like those days are kind of gone.
Yep. Travis Shaw's another guy I'll take a look at tonight, going up against Kendrick for obvious reasons. Much better price over on DraftKings. I mean, he's below 4K, but I still don't mind him on either site.
Yeah, he's cheap. He's really cheap. So I'm a fan there. I mean, do you remember the days when Anthony Rendon used to murder left-handed pitching?
I believe I was 9-10 years old.
I believe I was about double that age. But, I mean, he gets Wade Miley now coming off of – I guess that was an injury, whatever the hell you want to call that. But
scary.
Yeah, I mean, Miley is still Wade Miley. I know he had that huge game against the Reds and has some kind of, I guess, decent numbers so far this year. I mean, but the 10.8 strikeouts per 9, that's not going to last. 5.4 walks per 9, that's probably going to last. I mean, left on base percentage over 90. At batting, he's given up a 205 batting average. Like everything I'm seeing here is kind of telling me that he's not as good as this, and he never has been. So, you know, I think the Nationals, people for some reason don't have, or they come off them a little bit because they see lefty for Murphy and Harper. But I mean, they're still the best team against lefties in the league, and it's really not even close. So maybe they come at low ownership tonight, but I'm still all about them tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I'll talk about a couple of guys in the outfield that I don't mind. I mean, and Rendon's certainly one of them because he's never a guy, I mean, who's going to draw high ownership even after a 3 home run game. Like, he's still not going to do it because there's just so many other options who have been much more consistent. And especially because the price has come up a little bit. So I like Rendon. I mean, I like the Nationals righties and even some of the lefties as contrarian plays tonight.
Yeah, I like that. And then one guy that I think I'm probably going to fade tonight, and I might end up killing me, but he's going to probably be pretty popular, is Joey Gallo against Perdomo. I mean, he's been hitting a ton of home runs, but you know how boomer bust he is. You mentioned Perdomo a little bit. He's not giving up a lot of hard contacts. I mean, 20.6% is the best on the slate, 0.4 homers per 9. I mean, he's been a pretty decent pitcher. I mean, his ground ball rate this year is 69%. It's insane. Like you mentioned that earlier, he's a better pitcher than what people are giving him credit for. So I think there's some merit to fading some of these Texas guys tonight, and I think that I would imagine Gallo is probably the highest owned. He's leading the league in home runs now, right? Or the American League, at least.
I would think so. I mean, I think DraftKings definitely he's going to have some high ownership because he's below 4K over there. He's 3,800 on FanDuel. I mean, that's just crazy expensive for how boomer bust guy he is. So I think you'll get some other guys at higher ownership there, but I think DraftKings definitely.
Yeah, I think there's some merit to fading him.
So, anyone else at the hot corner?
No, nobody that. Well, I mean, I kind of always like Justin Turner. I prefer him. I guess he's got better numbers against the lefties this year, but I mean, throughout his career, he's kind of hit righties a little bit better. So I think he's a guy that'll go a little bit under owned tonight.
Yeah, always seems to. I like Turner. Always a fan of him. Shortstop here. Overall, I mean, not particularly thrilling. I don't feel like exactly paying up at this position. And FanDuel kind of makes it easy to just plug in Corey Seager at 35 if I want to.
I know. I feel like he's just been he's been so kind of under-owned, I guess. With short slates, he's been super high-owned, but that price, I mean, I don't really know what Lindor has done that he hasn't done that he's consistently, $500-$600 more.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Xander Bogaerts has 0 home runs on the season. I know he's putting up solid production considering he's had no power, but that's more so because the team's been scoring a ton of runs and he's been in good spots. But I mean, I love Corey Seager, so he's got to be your favorite play tonight, right? I mean, unless you're playing Trey Turner, was the most expensive on FanDuel. Now he's come down a little bit. I know he's been struggling, but if you can get him at low ownership at 3,800, then that's a really good spot for him because he's not cheap on DraftKings.
No, he's not. And I think those two definitely are the higher upside guys. Because outside of that, I mean, there's really not much to get excited about. I mean, Chris Owings has been pretty solid against lefties. I know he'll slip up into the top half of the lineup there with the lefty on the hill. I don't mind him on DraftKings because there is quite a difference in pricing. FanDuel, I mean, he's only 300 cheaper than Seager, so I don't mind him as a swerve. I think he fits in still well with an Arizona stack or something. So I mean, I won't rule him out on either site.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So, but anyone else? I mean, as far as like punts go, I mean, I don't like anyone. I mean, maybe a Jorge Polanco, who hasn't been bad against lefties, but that's it.
Yeah, I guess it's not. I think this is a spot tonight where you're going to be paying up for shortstop because there's really nobody cheap that even really has much power upside.
No, I don't think so either. Outfield, I mean, there's a ton of options on tonight's slate. I mean, you look at the Diamondbacks bats, I mean, priced down a little bit on DraftKings. Tomas and Pollock getting the lefty there. I mean, I like those two quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with those guys. And then you got, of course, the Tigers side, Justin Upton, finally looking like, the player we knew before him. He's got 6 homers on the year. He's only batting about 260, but, he's been a big part of that offense too. So I think he's what, 4,200 on DraftKings, pretty pricey. So I feel like he's a guy kind of in that range that could go a little bit under-owned because you've got some guys around that same price, I think, in better spots than he is. So I think he's a guy that I'll be on a little bit.
Yeah, no, I definitely like him. Jason Worth, I mean, a guy who against lefties, I mean, the last couple of years, I mean, he's been really solid. I mean, near 300 ISO against lefties going back to last year. Yeah, we're not believers in Wade Miley. Worth's actually been hitting the ball pretty well this season. Good hard contact rate. Reasonably priced, and I think he's going to fly under the radar still.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I mean, if you're not a believer in Kenta Maeda, which I'm kind of on the fence about, he's been pitching better, but he's still got some numbers that I'm not really much of a believer in. So, you play a guy like Andrew McCutchen. I'm definitely not doing a whole pirate stack, but McCutchen's a guy that I think I could play as a one-off that if you're just looking for some upside, but still not hitting for average. You just got some power.
Yeah, I don't mind McCutchen. I mean, you're going to get him lower ownership. And it's not like he's having the cleanest of outings.
No, he's not.
As far as value goes, I mean, I'm not loving a ton. I mean, Tyler Collins, I don't mind if he's in the lineup. He's been decent. I mean, Godley's a guy who's been awful in chase throughout his career. So if Collins is up in the top half of the lineup, I'll use him for a value. Maybe Delano DeShields as well, leading off. He's a good stolen base guy.
Yeah, a couple of these Brewers bats, depending on who's in the lineup too. Hernan Perez, Keon Broxton are both decent prices, mid 3Ks. Domingo Santana, another guy that he's pretty much all or nothing, home run upside. You don't imagine all three will be in the lineup, of course, but whichever ones are, I think are pretty decent spots there in the middle. One other guy that's actually hitting pretty well, if you're not playing Danny Salazar, Kevin Pillar is cheap batting, should be leading off again. So, Salazar does have those issues with command, some big innings. So I don't love him, obviously, but if you need a cheap guy, he's got some speed too.
Yeah, I think the outfield is a good spot. I mean, really, I think if you are paying up for a guy, I mean, it has to be Mookie Betts, right?
I mean, I know you love Mookie. I love Mookie too. So, yeah, if I'm paying up, I don't know. I mean, it's tough with Harper, but I think in a tournament, it makes more sense to go with Betts because Harper's going to have higher ownership than he should, as always. And I mean, it's not to say he's not in a good spot, but he kind of just by default, especially on slates with no Mike Trout, he just kind of is there. And Mookie's just every bit as good of a hitter as Bryce Harper. So you give me the hate for that, but that's just the truth.
I mean, Mookie Betts, I mean, GPPs, he was 10 to 15% owned against Willie Peralta last night. I mean, he went 4 for 4. I mean, obviously, I think the ownership is going to come up. But I mean, Chase Anderson, reverse splits guy, and Anderson, I'm still not a believer that he's going to be great. I think he improved a little bit, but not to the potential where I'm just fading guys against him.
No, not by any means. I'm not a believer there. And I mean, you got to agree. We already talked about him, of course, but AJ Pollock's got to be the highest owned guy on DraftKings in the outfield tonight, right?
I would assume so, yeah. I mean,
That
cash
price is
GPP,
insane.
yeah. I mean, you're getting a huge discount on him, and the guy's been very solid against lefties in his career.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
anyone else want to talk about here in the outfield?
No, no, I don't. The really cheap guys. I mean, watch lineups and see if you get a guy slotted in a top spot. Maybe if you just need a cheap option. But there's really not that many pitchers you need to pay up for tonight. And even the ones that you do, I mean, there's no Kershaw or Max, so you can pretty much fit whoever you want tonight. So I'm not going to be going too deep in the outfield.
Yeah, I feel like there's a reasonable amount of like mid-price guys to just build a balanced lineup with.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's wrap things up here. You can head over to fantasycafe.com for all great tools and content.